Even as we emerge from the pandemic, our external environment has become very troubled. US-China relations, which sets the tone for global affairs, are worsening. The two powers are divided over many issues. Their rival ideologies and systems of government, China's growing influence in the world, plus many specific problems, including trade disputes, cyber espionage, the South China Sea, Hong Kong, and most recently and worryingly, sharply escalating tensions over Taiwan. Yet the US and China need to work together on many pressing global issues, including climate change, pandemics, and nuclear proliferation. And their tense relationship is making this almost impossible. And this is bad news for the world. President Joe Biden and President Xi Jinping recently held a long video call. They agreed to meet in person. But neither side expects relations to improve anytime soon. Furthermore, we must all hope that there are no miscalculations or mishaps which can make things much worse very quickly. Apart from US-China tensions, Russia's invasion of Ukraine also has profound implications for the world and for Singapore. First, the invasion violates the UN Charter and fundamental principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And this is particularly important to Singapore. Our security, even our existence, relies on countries upholding these principles. We cannot legitimize Russia's wrongful actions. Russia claims that what it calls a special military operation in Ukraine is justified by historical errors and crazy decisions. If we accept this logic, what happens if one day others use this same argument against us? Second, the war has created deep hostility between Russia and other states, especially US and the NATO countries. Relations have completely broken down, and there are nuclear powers on both sides. It's hard to imagine any satisfactory end to the conflict. Third, the war in Ukraine affects security in the Asia-Pacific. It has complicated the already strained US-China relations, and also relations between China and America's partners in Asia, like Australia and Japan. We can expect more geopolitical contestation in the Asia-Pacific. Some countries will choose a side, others, like Singapore, will try our best to avoid being caught up in major power rivalry. Our region has enjoyed peace for so long that it's hard for us to imagine things being different. But look at how things have gone wrong in Europe. How suddenly and quickly. And can you be sure that things cannot go wrong like that in our region too? So we must get real, and we must get ourselves prepared psychologically. What can we do about these external dangers? First, we must stand firm on fundamental principles of international law. Work with other countries to uphold a rules-based order, for example, by speaking up at the United Nations. Taking cover and keeping quiet will hurt us in the long term. Next, we must take national service seriously and keep the SAF and home team strong and credible. If we do not defend ourselves, no one is going to defend us on our behalf. Most importantly, we must stay one united people. Never allow ourselves to be divided, whether by race, religion, income, social differences, or place of birth. Stay alert against foreign actors who are looking out to exploit our vulnerabilities and to influence our people for their own interests. I talked about this in my Chinese speech. Don't believe that everything you read online is true. If we are taken in and we are divided, we will stand no chance. But united, we can deal with any problems that come our way. Besides strategic dangers, we also have to deal with economic issues. We've emerged strongly from the pandemic. Most sectors are steadily recovering, including hard-hit ones like tourism and aviation. But now, the war in Ukraine has clouded our outlook, although we still expect positive growth this year. Top of everyone's minds is the cost of living. Even before the war, inflation was already becoming a problem because COVID-19 had disrupted supply chains, and it had also caused developed countries, especially the US, to implement huge spending packages, stoking inflation, which spread internationally. But the war has made things worse. Oil and gas supplies from Russia are getting disrupted, and this is pushing up energy prices worldwide. That's why our electricity prices have gone up. Ukraine and Russia are also major grain exporters. The war has prevented most of their grain from being shipped out to world markets, and that's causing shortages and pushing up food prices globally. The government is doing everything necessary to support Singaporeans, especially middle and lower income families. And the support includes cash payouts, USAVE rebates, SNC rebates, CDC vouchers, Medisave top-ups, and more. This financial year alone, a middle-income family with 2 young children staying in a 4-room HDB flat can expect an additional $2,200 in support. And a lower-income family staying in a 3-room HDB flat, like the one I talked about in my Chinese speech just now, can expect even more, about $3,700. This will not cover fully every cost increase, but it will help lighten the burden on Singaporean households. And if the situation worsens, we stand ready to do more. MAS has also tightened our exchange rate policy. The Singapore dollar has strengthened. It makes traveling overseas more affordable. At home, it makes imported goods cheaper in Sing dollar terms. But there's a limit to this because a stronger Sing dollar also makes our exports more expensive and we lose competitiveness against other countries. So we have to be very careful not to overdo things. The basic reality is that international economic conditions have fundamentally changed. It's not just the pandemic or the war in Ukraine. The recent decades were an exceptional period. Globalization was in full swing. International trade grew rapidly. China's economy was growing exponentially and exporting more and more goods at highly competitive prices all over the world. And this brought down the cost of many products and kept prices worldwide very stable. This era is now over. China's growth and exports are slowing, their costs are going up. Some countries have raised tariffs against each other, particularly between the US and China. And countries are also relooking at their supply chains to prioritize resilience and self-sufficiency. That means not buying from the cheapest. That means accepting higher costs. And companies, too, are opting for just-in-case instead of just-in-time production. And all these trends are raising costs and pushing up inflation everywhere, including in Singapore. We don't have much influence over this global inflation picture, but what is within our power is to make ourselves more productive and more competitive, because then our workers can earn more and can more than make up for the higher prices of food, of fuel, and of other imports. And that way, we can all become better off in real terms. And this requires us to press on with economic upgrading and restructuring, redouble our transformation efforts, encourage workers to upgrade their skills at every opportunity. And indeed, that is exactly what we've been doing. Besides prices rising, physical supplies are also being disrupted. You all know about Malaysia's export ban on chickens. But it's not just Malaysia. Indonesia temporarily halted palm oil exports when high cooking oil prices became a political issue. India also recently banned wheat exports to keep domestic wheat prices down. Under pressure, faced with food shortages and rising prices, governments will put their domestic needs first, and so we must expect more arbitrary actions like this, which will impact us. As a small and open economy, we are heavily dependent on imports, even of essential goods, but we are not helpless. For quite a while now, we've been actively diversifying our import sources, building up adequate stockpiles of food and medical essentials, investing in agri-tech to make local farms more efficient and productive, pushing ahead with our 30 by 30 goal to be able to produce 30% of our nutritional needs locally by 2030. And when COVID came, we redoubled our efforts. It costs money to make our supplies more resilient. Buying from diversified sources means we don't just buy from the cheapest or the most convenient producer. And maintaining stockpiles requires space and incurs costs. You may have to air condition your stocks. But we must think of it as paying for insurance. Early in the pandemic, when we raised the DORSCON from yellow to orange, it triggered a small scramble. I was hosting my Cap Gourmet dinner that evening. Suddenly, every phone was buzzing. My guests were receiving and sharing pictures of empty supermarket shelves. Fortunately, it was before I stood up to speak. So when I made my speech, I told them, don't worry, Chan Chun Sing is on it. He was then MTI minister. I had faith in him, so I told him, I promise you, you won't have to eat compo rations. Because, in fact, we had enough stocks in warehouses and logistics centers, and we were able to restock the supermarkets quickly and restored confidence. Therefore, this year, when live chickens stopped arriving from Malaysia, we didn't flap. We could draw on ample stocks of frozen chicken from Brazil, the US, and other places. And we soon brought in more chilled chicken from Australia and New Zealand and Thailand, and now from Indonesia. And the chicken rice stalls are back in business again. People take this for granted, but actually a lot of work goes on behind the scenes. Nothing happens by itself, not even in Singapore. It's only possible because we always plan forward to give ourselves options and solutions during crisis. And that's how we must continue to prepare ourselves for the future.